Hey fishing fanatics, Den Herring here, my channel Fish Den 365. Last week we were at our third annual tournament among friends at Conesus Lake. That's right, we had our tournament again. You might remember last year's video. If you haven't seen it, check out Smallmouth Smackdown on Conesus. That's one of my videos that you can check out and see last year's results. We had a number of teams go up this year. Conspicuous by his absence was Kevin Phelps, but him and Farah were busy having a lunker of their own. Take a look. So my partner Judd and I, we got up there Thursday by 11 o'clock, 11:30 we were out fishing, but some of the teams were already up on Wednesday. I think Christian was actually up there part of Tuesday already, and it wasn't long into the day on Wednesday before some of the pictures started flowing back to Judd and I from some of the folks that were already up on the lake. So Judd and I saw that people were, a lot of the teams were catching fish already, which got us excited for when we got up there. But when we got there, we learned that the bite was different, at least for us this year. Last year, the bite was a little bit more horizontal. We were able to get the bass to chase baits. This time, not so much. Everything had to be down on the bottom. And if you weren't, for Judd and I anyway, if we weren't fishing on the bottom, we weren't getting bit. So the first day was a bit of an experiment for us to figure out what it took to catch fish. But by the time we were out there on Friday, the fishing picked up pretty good for both of us. We had a good limit by the end of the day on Friday. Our best 5 fish was probably about 21 pounds, so that was a good day. The way this worked was the first day of the tournament was Friday, and you were to bring your one biggest fish in, your biggest lunker. So Judd and I brought one in, a smallmouth that weighed 4.27 pounds. That's the biggest fish we caught on Friday. We caught a lot of other fish real close to it, but nothing that beat it. And so that was Friday, and then Saturday we went back out and the 5 biggest fish were weighed in for Saturday. And then the addition of those 5 fish plus the 1 fish from Friday, you add those weights up, and that's how you come to be the winner of the tournament among friends, our third annual one. I can't believe we've been doing this. This is the 3rd year we've been doing this already. It's a lot of fun. So on that Saturday, there was actually another tournament going on. A group called Arcadia Bass Anglers was having a tournament, and some of our buddies decided to fish that tournament too. But we made it so that they could fish that tournament and simultaneously fish the tournament among friends. And Christian and his brother John Bench won that tournament on Saturday with over 19 pounds. I think they had something like 19.98 pounds and took the tournament. So they beat those New York boys. 2 other brothers in our group, Glenn and Jeff Burrell, took 5th place in that tournament with over 16 pounds of bass. So it was a good tournament for them too. While we were up there was a lot of things happening, all kinds of fishing obviously, but the dinners after the fishing are always fun. There's always the smack talk, and we celebrated birthdays, and basically it's all about the camaraderie while you're up there. It's just a lot of fun. So the results after the first, and one of the sad parts about this whole trip is I don't have any video to show you. I only have still shots, and we'll show you a lot of those as this video progresses. It was raining most of the entire time when I was up there with Judd. The entire Thursday was just a washout. We fished from about 11 until almost dark in the rain that whole time, and it was a little bit like Chinese water drop torture. But the fish, we caught a few, and by Friday things were getting better for us because we were starting to figure out how to catch more. Friday wasn't such a bad day. It was not raining on Friday, and it was warmer. But we were so focused on catching fish and figuring out what they were doing, we never broke out the camera at all. And then come Saturday, it started out with much colder temperatures and drizzle, and it drizzled for a good part of the day off and on. So no video to show you, but we do have a lot of still shots. After the first day of the tournament, Glenn and Jeff Burrell had the lead with a beautiful 5.07 pound largemouth bass That fish was nice, but they had a great day out there on the first day. They had over 22 pounds of bass on their first day. Christian and John had 4.43 pounds, their biggest smallmouth bass. Al and Rudy had 4.32 pounds. And myself and Judd, we had a 4.27 pounds. So we were real tightly grouped there. Dwayne and Cliff had 3.43 pounds. The second day, Dwayne and Cliff did not fish. I think Cliff wasn't feeling very good, and so they left early. But the rest of our group was out there. And our final weight, we had a new champions this year. We had Christian and John with a total of 24.37. Congratulations to Christian and John. Al and Rudy took second place with 24.33. Myself and Judd had 21.83, and Glenn and Jeff ended with 21.38. So a lot of good weights for the 2-day event. It was a lot of fun, as it always is. Looking forward to next year. 3 years, we had 3 different winners of this tournament. That tells you that we've got a pretty good group of fishermen coming up here every year. Part of the original Knock Mafia. And it's good to be spending time with the guys and out there on the water, and you get to learn a lot this way too. You talk afterwards and learn what different people are doing, sharing some of the techniques and methodologies for catching, strategy, equipment. We learned a little bit about how powerful some of the tools are, like spot lock. There's these trolling motors today that with the GPS functionality, spot lock is kind of like having power poles for deep water. You don't need anything to contact with the bottom. The electric trolling motor calculates your area, your spot, and it keeps you locked onto that spot. And if you're fishing out there on a very windy day, then that can be incredibly important, especially if you're fishing a team tournament where you have 2 people casting. I'll give you an example of how that can be an advantage. A big part of the second day, Saturday, I spent just trying to control the boat so that Judd would have a good opportunity to make the perfect cast so that he can stay in contact with his bait and catch fish. But if you had this spot lock, you can just let that thing do its job, and now 2 of you can focus on catching the fish. So it is definitely an advantage to have, and these are the kind of things you learn as you're out there talking with everybody and sharing information. One thing that I'll leave you with this video is something that I've already learned and knew about, but I'm always constantly reminded, and it's probably the number one biggest mistake I see beginning fishermen make, or fisherwomen too, is that when you're fishing on the bottom, you have to stay in contact with your bait. What do I mean by that? Well, let's say you're fishing a small jig, for example, and you throw it out there. Now you're letting it go down, you're watching your line, and you're waiting for this bait to hit bottom, because that's where the action's going to be. So how do you know when it hits bottom? Well, hopefully if you're using a tungsten jig, you might be able to feel it through your line. When I'm holding my rod, I always have a finger on the line so that I can feel what's happening with that line. Now I can, if you have a very sensitive rod, these rods today are great. They're very sensitive. The expensive ones, you can feel almost everything through them. But nothing works better than my finger directly on that line. I can feel that as well as anything. So you can usually feel when that jig hits the bottom. But if you don't know, if you can't feel it, that's okay. And on a windy day, you might not. But if you watch your line as it's going down through the water, all of a sudden when your bait hits the bottom, your line goes slack above the water. That's how you know your lure's hit the bottom. And if it's a very windy day and you're holding your rod at a 45-degree angle, say, and the wind's blowing this way and it's blowing a bow in your line and you can't tell if your lure hit the bottom or not, just put your rod down. Keep it parallel to the water or put it right down, point the rod at the water, throw that lure out there. As soon as it lands in the water, just reel once or twice so that you take the slack out of the line. That way the wind can't blow a big bow in it. And then you just watch that line. When your bait hits the water, it'll go slack. That's how you, when your bait hits the bottom, it'll go slack. That's how you know you're on the bottom. From that point on, you want to make sure you're in contact with that bait. In other words, you do not want any slack line laying on the surface of the water, because if you do that, you're going to miss bites. The whole trick for catching fish is detecting bites, knowing when to set the hook. And if you have slack water, if you have slack line on the water like that, it means you're not in direct contact with that bait anymore. A fish could be picking it up or pecking at it and you'll never know it because you have no way of feeling it when that's happening. So as soon as that bait hits the bottom, if you're in a good boat position where you don't have the wind blowing your line, personally I like to hold my rod up at an angle. And this is not the only way to fish. You can also hold it down and move your rod horizontally along the bottom. I know a lot of fishermen that do that. I like to have mine up and I move my rod this way as I'm retrieving the bait so that I can feel the bait and feel what it's doing on the bottom. So you're feeling for that contact through the line. Some people might look at their line as it comes off their tip of their rod. I like to try and see my line where it's entering the water, but also feeling for it with my finger and through my hands with the rod. So, but it's important to know that when you move your bait towards you a little bit and you reel up a little bit of that line, you want to stay in contact with it. You don't want to have a bunch of slack on the surface of the water at any given time because you're going to be missing the opportunity to detect bites. I hope that makes sense. Maybe one of the videos I do down the road, I'll actually show this on the water so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. Probably would help. So I will plan for that. So again, we had 3 years, 3 different winners. Next year, we'll see if anybody can be a repeat winner. Only time will tell. We have to wait a whole other year to find that out. But I can't wait to get back up to the Conesus again next year. It's a great lake. It's not it may not be, actually for me, I've only ever fished the lake in the fall, and a lot of times the bite is on the bottom. Sometimes you can get them to chase, but many years it's a bottom bite, and you just have to finesse those fish into biting. But I would imagine at different times of the year there's probably a very good topwater bite there. I'm sure there's a very good weed bite there in the summer. Have to try and fish it at a different time of year sometime, but looking forward to going up again next year. It's got a great smallmouth fishery there. The largemouths are very fat, and there's some big pike and muskie to be had, some walleye. It's just a good time, and I hope that if you're out there and you have some fishing buddies, that you get to enjoy some time with them the way I did with a bunch of the buddies that I have. It's something I look forward to every year. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video and maybe got something from it. If you did, please hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Hit that bell. That'll notify you when a new video is coming out. We're certified bassified. This is the fall now. We're into November. And so the next couple times that I go out, I'll probably be fishing for striped bass, for some stripers or hybrid stripers. Hopefully I can find them. When I do, we'll be sharing that video with you. As always, may God bless your fishing endeavors, and we'll see you on the water.